Martin was a well-known and highly respected businessman, someone who had worked tirelessly for over a decade to build his wealth, reputation, and legacy. His entire life revolved around his work and his ambition. Every ounce of energy he poured into late nights, endless meetings, and business expansions was not just for himself, but for one person, his only son. That boy, gifted with remarkable talent, was the reason Martin pushed himself so hard. He believed that one day, everything he built would provide his son with a strong foundation and a brilliant future. But then came the day that shattered everything. Martin received devastating news. His beloved son had been diagnosed with delusions and showed early signs of schizophrenia. The boy he adored, the one he had placed so much hope in, was slipping away into a world of confusion and fragmented thoughts. His once bright eyes now looked vacant, often staring at Martin with a distant, almost dazed expression. At times, he would mumble incoherently, whispering words that no one could fully understand. For Martin, the shock was unbearable. He had poured 10 years of relentless effort into building a life for his son, yet now it felt as though everything was crumbling before his eyes. The family sought help from a psychologist, who revealed something even more painful. His son had confessed that he often felt neglected, but as if his father cared more about money and work than about him. The doctor explained that his condition was not only the result of genetics and environment, but was also worsened by his own habits, like staying up all night, lost in video games, while his parents were away working. For years, Martin and his wife had thrown themselves into earning more money, believing it was the best way to provide for him. But in reality, their absence had created a gap that no material success could ever fill. The psychologist's advice was clear. The only path to healing was not through more medicine or treatment centers, but through love, presence, and deep emotional connection. The best, and perhaps the only way to help your son, the doctor said firmly, is for you to be there with him, to dedicate your time, patience, and heart. No amount of success can replace the healing power of love. At first, Martin considered asking his wife to quit her job and stay home with their son. But after much reflection, he realized something profound. It wasn't just his wife's role, it was his. His son needed him. The man he admired, the father he longed for, the figure who had always been absent while chasing deals and deadlines. If Martin truly wanted to save his boy, he had to step away from the empire he had built. It was a terrifying decision, but he made it. Martin handed over the reins of his business to his subordinates and turned his back on the frantic pace of the corporate world. With determination, he left the city behind and took his son to the countryside, a quiet place where the pressures of business could no longer reach them. It was the same countryside where Martin himself had spent his childhood, filled with memories of rivers, fishing trips, and simple joys. Every morning, father and son would row a small boat across the calm waters and spend the day fishing. They hardly spoke. His son avoided conversation, lost in his own silence, and Martin chose not to push. He wanted his son to feel free, not pressured. Still, every once in a while he would throw in a light-hearted remark, like when they caught a particularly big fish, just enough to coax a faint smile from his boy. Those little smiles became Martin's treasure, proof that somewhere deep inside, his son was still there. Days turned into weeks and weeks into a month. Their daily routine didn't change much, rowing, fishing, sitting together in silence. But beneath the stillness, something was shifting. Then one evening, his son suddenly spoke. "Dad," he asked hesitantly, "are you afraid of me too?" The words pierced Martin's heart. He couldn't hold back his tears. In that moment, everything he had buried for years came rushing out. He realized that stepping away from his business and being with his son was not just about saving the boy. It was also about saving himself. Martin had spent so many years carrying the image of a successful man, a provider, a leader. But behind the mask of achievement, he had been deeply unhappy. The truth hit him. He had loved his wife and child dearly, but he had never truly been there for them. He had been too busy chasing success to recognize that real happiness was already at home, waiting for him. Helping his son heal became a mirror through which Martin began to heal his own soul. In caring for the boy, he rediscovered his own humanity, his own need for love, and his own longing for peace. By the time I met Martin and his son in New Jersey, they had transformed. They were no longer father and son weighed down by illness and disappointment, but close companions, two people who had learned to walk together again. His son had made remarkable progress, and Martin himself seemed lighter, more grounded. When I asked Martin what his secret was, his answer was simple yet profound. The key to rebuilding my life and my son's life, he said, was to make every word, every action a work of value, to live in a way where even the smallest gesture carries meaning. He explained further, we all chase success, and when we reach it, we think happiness will automatically follow. But real life shows us otherwise. Success can bring fleeting moments of joy, moments of recognition, applause, admiration. Those feelings are powerful, almost intoxicating, but they don't last. Life isn't only made of those highlights. It's also filled with the mundane, the frustrating, the painful. And if we can't find happiness in those ordinary moments, then no amount of success will ever be enough. Martin's journey revealed something universal. Even the most accomplished people often struggle with happiness. Some lose their balance, letting their achievements consume them until they burn out, collapse, or even lose their families. Others battle depression or isolation, despite having everything they once dreamed of. This raises a critical question. Can someone be both successful and truly happy? Or is happiness always the price we pay for ambition? Martin believed the answer lay in learning how to balance. Success without happiness, he told me, is meaningless. To achieve both, we must first learn how to be present, how to connect with the life right in front of us. Otherwise, we'll always be chasing shadows. Martin's story became a powerful lesson for me, and for anyone who has ever wondered about the relationship between success and happiness. He explained that the first step was learning to see happiness in places beyond our achievements. Work, money, recognition, these are only parts of life, not the whole picture. If you tie your happiness exclusively to your accomplishments, you'll find yourself constantly chasing, never satisfied. Happiness has to be found in the present moment, Martin said. Not just in awards or promotions, but in the ordinary things we often overlook. Sitting with your family at dinner, walking barefoot on the grass, feeling the morning air, all of these are gifts. This was the first principle he had learned. Train yourself to recognize happiness in simple, everyday experiences. He described it like this. Imagine you're walking toward a goal. If you only allow yourself to be happy once you reach the finish line, you'll miss all the joy that could be found along the way. Instead, if you can smile at each step, appreciate each breath, and value each person you meet, then happiness accompanies you throughout the journey. For Martin, happiness was no longer a distant prize waiting at the end of hard work. It became a companion walking beside him, present in each small moment of daily life. The second principle Martin discovered was about balance. He compared success to learning to ride a bicycle. At first, the bike controls you, he explained. It wobbles, it dictates where you go, and you fall often. But over time, you learn to master it, to guide it where you want. Success is the same. In the beginning, it can overwhelm you. You become obsessed with it, letting it steer every decision. But if you practice, you can learn to control it, rather than letting it control you. This idea resonated deeply with me. Many successful people lose themselves in their achievements, becoming prisoners of their own ambition. They allow their identity to be defined solely by what they've accomplished. But Martin emphasized that true mastery means treating success as one part of life, not as the entire measure of who you are. Don't worship success, he said. Don't cling to it as if your life depends on it. See it as one piece of the puzzle. Important, yes, but never the whole. The third principle Martin shared was about separation. He stressed the importance of distinguishing work from life. Think of work as something you do, not something you are, he explained. When the workday ends, let it end. Don't bring it home. Don't let it poison your relationships or your peace of mind. Your family doesn't care about your profit margins. They care about you, your presence, your love, your laughter. This struck me as something so simple, yet so easily forgotten. How many of us carry our work into every corner of our lives? We check emails at the dinner table, replay conversations from meetings in our heads, and sacrifice weekends meant for rest to finish one more project. We think we're being responsible, but often we're just letting work invade the sacred spaces of our lives. Martin's turning point came when he realized he couldn't let business dominate his entire existence. If he wanted real happiness, he needed to put down his work at the end of the day and return to life with open arms. The fourth principle was about the ego. Martin admitted that, like many successful people, he had built a powerful sense of self around his achievements. The admiration of others, the applause, the awards, all of it fed his ego, making him feel larger than life. But in places where ego had no use, like at home, it became a burden. At work, my ego helped me push forward, he said. But at home, it made me impatient, controlling, and blind to the needs of my family. My ego wanted to be admired everywhere, even where admiration wasn't necessary. He realized that the ego, if left unchecked, isolates us. It convinces us we're above others, that we deserve more, that our way is the only way. And when that happens, compassion disappears. The ego, as Martin explained, is like a wall that separates us from people. If you want real happiness, you have to learn to soften it, to let humility and kindness guide you instead of pride. This was one of the hardest lessons for him. Letting go of ego didn't mean rejecting success. It meant remembering that achievements don't make you more valuable than anyone else. The fifth principle Martin uncovered was about giving back. Success is never yours alone, he said firmly. It's built on 1,000 invisible hands, timing, opportunities, support from others, and even luck. Without these, talent and effort aren't enough. That means when you succeed, you have a responsibility to give back. Martin spoke passionately about the importance of sharing your success with the community. Whether it's through charity, mentorship, or simply acts of kindness, contributing to the well-being of others not only sustains your achievements, but multiplies your happiness. When you share, he explained, you're not losing anything. You're planting seeds of happiness in others, and those seeds will grow into something much greater than you could ever achieve alone. He pointed out that some of the world's most enduringly successful people, those whose legacies last beyond their lifetimes, are the ones who understood this principle. They didn't just take, they gave. And in giving, they found a happiness that no trophy or paycheck could match. Listening to Martin, I began to understand that success and happiness aren't enemies. They don't have to cancel each other out, but they do require intention. To be successful and happy at the same time, you can't simply chase goals blindly. You need to learn to find joy in the present moment, control success instead of letting it control you. Separate work from life and return to your family fully. Tame the ego and choose humility. Share your success generously with the community. These principles, Martin believed, could transform not just individuals, but societies. Imagine a world where leaders, entrepreneurs, and creators pursued excellence without losing touch with love, humility, and compassion. Toward the end of our conversation, Martin looked thoughtful. "You know," he said softly, "my son's illness was the hardest thing I've ever faced. But in a strange way, it was also the greatest gift. Without it, I might never have stopped. I might have kept chasing, kept running, and never realized what really matters. My son saved me, just as much as I saved him. His words lingered with me long after our meeting. They carried a truth that applies to all of us. Life will always throw challenges in our path. Illness, failure, disappointment. But often, those very challenges become the teachers that guide us back to what's real. Success may give us recognition, but happiness gives us life. And without happiness, success is nothing more than an empty shell. As I reflected on Martin's journey, I began to see how universal his lessons were. His story wasn't just about a father saving his son. It was about redefining what it means to live well. Too often, we're conditioned to believe that success is the ultimate goal. We grow up hearing phrases like, "Work hard and you'll be happy," or "Once you make it, life will be easier." And so we set our sights on achievements, promotions, wealth, recognition. We tell ourselves that once we reach a certain milestone, then happiness will follow. But Martin's life turned that assumption upside down. He discovered that success without happiness is hollow, while happiness, even without massive success, can still feel complete. The real magic, he realized, is when the two walk hand in hand. And for that to happen, we need to change how we view both. Let's break down the insights Martin left us with. First, happiness is not something you earn after achieving success. It's something you cultivate daily. Think of happiness as soil and success as the plant. Without rich soil, no matter how much you water or how strong the seed, the plant won't thrive. If you learn to nurture happiness in your everyday life through gratitude, presence, and connection, then success, when it arrives, will feel more meaningful. Second, success is a tool, not an identity. It's like a hammer, powerful when used for building, but dangerous if you mistake it for who you are. Martin admitted that for years he thought of himself only as a businessman. Without realizing it, he allowed success to define his worth. But once he learned to see success as simply one chapter of his life, not the whole book, he found freedom. He could put it down, pick it up, and use it without being enslaved by it. Third, happiness requires presence. Martin said something that struck me deeply. The happiest people I know are not always the richest or the most accomplished. They're the ones who can be fully present with a cup of tea, a conversation, or a sunset. Think about that for a moment. Presence costs nothing, yet it is the key to unlocking joy. How often do we miss life because our minds are elsewhere, replaying the past or worrying about the future? Martin's reflections also reminded me of the hidden dangers of unchecked ambition. Many of us know people who appear successful on the outside, but are quietly struggling inside. Some battle depression, others lose their marriages, some even lose their sense of purpose entirely. Why does this happen? Because success amplifies whatever is already within us. If you're unhappy before success, chances are success will not cure that. If anything, it may magnify your unhappiness. The spotlight, the expectations, the pressure, it all becomes heavier. That's why Martin emphasized preparing your inner world before chasing external victories. He compared it to climbing a mountain. Reaching the top feels amazing, he said, but if you haven't trained your body, you'll collapse under the weight of the climb. The same goes for success. If your spirit isn't ready, the very thing you desire can break you. So how do we prepare ourselves? Martin believed there were a few practical steps anyone could take. Practice gratitude daily. Gratitude shifts your focus from what's missing to what's present. It rewires your brain to see abundance instead of scarcity. For Martin, this meant taking time each morning to name 3 things he was thankful for, even something as simple as hearing birds outside his window. Prioritize relationships over achievements. No trophy or paycheck will hug you when you're lonely. Martin realized this too late after years of neglecting his family. Now he urges others not to wait. Celebrate your wins with your loved ones, he said, but more importantly, celebrate them even when you have no wins to show. Set boundaries with work. Decide when work begins and when it ends. Be disciplined enough to honor those boundaries. Martin found that once he learned to close the laptop and silence the phone during family time, his relationships flourished. And surprisingly, his work didn't suffer. In fact, it improved because he returned to it with a clearer, more rested mind. Invest in giving back. Generosity creates meaning that success alone cannot. Martin began donating not just money, but his time, mentoring young entrepreneurs, supporting community projects, and volunteering with organizations that supported mental health. He found that giving created a joy deeper than any business deal ever had. Stay humble. Success can be intoxicating. It's easy to believe you've done it all by yourself. But Martin reminded himself constantly that luck, timing, and the support of others were part of his journey. Humility kept him grounded, even as his achievements grew. What moved me most about Martin's story was not just his wisdom, but his vulnerability. He admitted his mistakes openly. He didn't sugarcoat the fact that he had prioritized money over family for too long, but instead of drowning in regret, he chose to change. That's perhaps the greatest lesson. It's never too late to realign. You may feel like you've gone too far down the wrong path, but Martin's transformation shows otherwise. Healing is possible. Redemption is possible. Happiness is possible, even after years of neglect. One evening, I asked Martin if he ever missed the thrill of constant business challenges. The meetings, the deals, the race to stay ahead. He smiled and said, "Of course I miss some of it. But now when I see my son laugh, when I share a quiet dinner with my wife, I realize that these are the real victories. The boardroom applause fades, but the sound of your child's laughter, that stays." Those words stayed with me. They reminded me that success may fill your bank account, but happiness fills your heart. And at the end of the day, it's the heart that sustains us. As we wrapped up our conversation, Martin left me with a final thought. Don't wait for a crisis to teach you what matters. Don't wait for illness or loss or burnout to show you the value of happiness. Start now. Live now. Love now. If you can succeed at work and succeed at life, that's wonderful. But if you have to choose life. That's the kind of wisdom that only comes from walking through fire and finding light on the other side. So if you're listening to this, maybe it's time to ask yourself some honest questions. Am I chasing success at the expense of my happiness? Am I present with the people who matter most? Am I letting my ego rule my relationships? Am I giving back or only taking? Am I finding joy in the small, ordinary moments of life? Because in the end, success and happiness don't have to be rivals. They can be partners, if we're intentional. Martin's story is a reminder that happiness is not a destination. It's a way of traveling. And the sooner we learn that, the richer our lives will become. That's the conclusion of Martin's journey, a tale of success, loss, rediscovery, and transformation. His life shows us that while success can make you admired, happiness makes you alive. And perhaps that is the true measure of a life well lived.